for those of you, who have any interest in PVA, right, your patient visit average, our patient visit average at the Chiropractic Wellness Center, over 300.
Okay, welcome Genesis Nation. I'm really excited today to introduce everybody. If you haven't met this fantastic woman, full of energy and knowledge, Holly Jensen is the Chief Operating Officer of Cash Practice. And if you haven't heard of Cash Practice, click the links below and take a look at what this product and service are offering us, doctors of creativity. Doctors DCs, right? Doctors of creativity, because some of us tend to get a little creative when it comes to the world of compliance and care plans and things like that. So today we want to provide a nice framework, not just about cash practice, but the why behind it and how we can be safer in the care that we're delivering from a medical legal perspective. So Holly, can you give us your history? I know you started out in the trenches. Now you're in the business side. Yeah, please share.
21 years ago. So back in old 2002, I became a chiropractic assistant for Dr. Miles Bodson. And this is in Southern California, in San Diego. And, when I first started as a CA, I literally had no idea what I was doing. In fact, when Dr. Miles hired me, I told him, like, well, I don't think I would be any good for the job, because I've never had like a professional job. Mom, daycare provider, waitress, but I'd never worked in a professional environment. And he's like, look, if you're willing to learn, I'm willing to train you. And that right there kind of stopped me in my tracks of my limiting beliefs, because I'm like, oh gosh, this is awesome. This doctor wants to like invest in me to work as a professional in his office. And I had no idea at the time that he had an engineering background before he became a chiropractor, and he developed a software platform. Well, it was a floppy disk back then, that we were using with our patients to put them on programs of care with affordable payment options. And it drastically increased our patient retention. In fact, for those of you, who have any interest in PVA, right, your patient visit average, our patient visit average at the Chiropractic Wellness Center, over 300. Now I'll tell you, the national average is 12.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's even high.
Right. So 300, like, what the heck,
so
right?
You guys were able to build a lifestyle practice or a wellness practice.
Yes. It was all about
those numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. It was all about taking patients from, their first appointment, and through the re-exams, transitioning from corrective to wellness. And then you end up with a practice full of lifetime practice members. So, I remember at one point when Dr. Miles was getting really busy running Cash Practice. It was no longer floppy disk. We made it a website, cashpractice.com, because every time there needed to be an update, we'd have to burn new floppy disks and mail them out. So having it be web-based, we can provide instant updates. So we've been the leaders in patient retention for well over 20 years in regards to that model. But having, Dr. Miles just going around speaking about patient retention and the benefits of putting people on programs of care with affordable payment options, he was working both the practice and out speaking. And he came into practice one day and he's like, hey, you guys, just no more new patients for the next 3 months. Like, I've got to catch my breath. I've got to spend time with my kids. Like, no new patients for the next 3 months. And initially my reaction, like my heart sank. I got heart palpitations, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, no new patients for 3 months. What are we going to do? But then I realized we were not dependent upon new patients, because we had a practice full of patients who are on lifetime wellness care with
Yeah.
recurring money coming in every single day of the month. So we were not dependent upon new patients. And when I share that, when I'm out speaking and I share that story, I hear gasps in the audience. They're like, what? No new patients? Like, this is craziness.
Well,
How
that's known as like the lifeblood of the practice. But
right.
it also, like when you talk about recurring revenue, there's the whole business model of recurring revenue makes your business that much more scalable and sellable.
Mm-hmm.
When you have, because you can make predictions if you have those systems set. So I know there's like 4 major components of cash practice. Can you tie into those? You talked about retention. So
Yes.
some of the tools I know you talked about were patient education, but can you give us, and you could dive into that also, but I'd love to hear those 4 components of
Yeah,
your
thanks for asking.
service.
So
Okay.
basically, what we've identified is that there's 4 areas where we have the sad opportunity of losing patients throughout their journey in practice. And those 4 areas we identified to make it really easy to understand, we call them the 4 F's. So number 1, patients need, in order to have like high patient retention, or what I like to call loyal patients
Yeah.
need to have forecasted care. And that's the care plans. That is the foundation to patient retention. So forecasting care is your game plan, showing the patient whether you're recommending based upon what they clinically need, 24 visits over 4 months or 60 visits over 8 months, whatever it is that they need to reach the goal of care. How is that being packaged up and presented? Because if you're like, oh, let's see how you do, we'll get you started and we'll reevaluate you, and you're doing that every 12 visits, they're only going to do that so many times, right?
Yeah.
Or let's use your insurance, see how it goes, and then now their insurance is exhausted and it's time to pay again. Like, these are all of the opportunities that patients leave the practice because you created an artificial exit. So forecasting care is huge. So we have a care plan calculator that will help doctors to create customized, compliant financial plans that tie into the treatment plans.
That's the key word, because I know you stressed it in the way you delivered it, compliant. Because a lot of care plans were, on that creative side, we're teetering on the line of legal versus illegal, and there are things to know about making your care plans. Can you touch on that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Is it
absolutely.
like, is that
So one thing that I talk about is like, okay, back in 2022, so like a whole year ago, we've got this new regulation and it's called the Patient No Surprises Act. And part of that regulation, this is for all healthcare providers, by the way, it's not just chiropractors, but part of that regulation requires healthcare providers to give patients a good faith estimate based upon the services, products, fees, CPT codes, actual fees, discount, everything that's going on. You're required to give that to them before you render service. And when I go out speaking about that, people are like, wait, what? Ooh, missed that one. You're not alone. By the way, if this is the first time you're ever hearing this, you are not alone, which is
yeah.
why Dr. Brian has me on today, because we're talking about it. You're getting educated on it now. So because of changing rules and regulations in regards to what healthcare providers can do and not do in regards to discounts, care, services, all of those things, we update our software to make sure that chiropractors are compliant in the way that they're presenting their good faith estimates, their programs of care. We have all the legal language of like what happens if they stop care early, they get in a car accident, insurance pays differently. So, and I'll add, even though our company name is Cash Practice, we named ourselves this over 20 years ago, which was hot name. Now people are like, oh, cash practice. Oh, I wish I was one. No, we help you in regards to the cash collections of your practice. So whether it's the patient's visits to meet the deductible, their co-pays, non-covered services, that is what we do at Cash Practice.
And is it just a software, or do you provide consulting services towards this as well?
So we don't.
You're just throwing nuggets out here that I'm loving.
So that's a great question. We are not a consulting company, but what it is that we do is not only do we give you the tools that you need to be successful, but we give you the practice management advice to apply this so that you are successful in doing it. So we have a dedicated account success manager. We have power hours with myself and Dr. Bodzin, who will go through like, hey, this is a challenge we're facing in chiropractic. This is the flavor of the month. Like, let's talk about it. Let's have you guys get solid on it. So we're not providing consulting or coaching, but we do want to provide everybody with the information they need to be able to make educated decisions in their practice.
So when you're talking about compliance, is this federally compliant, or are we also talking like, do you have
Federal
different?
and state.
Okay, so like if I'm in New Jersey versus California, you can help target whatever the laws are for that state for
Yeah,
applying your
absolutely.
software.
Absolutely. So we have a board of compliance advisors that will review what it is, the legal language of our service agreements that the care plan calculator creates. So we have a blanket statement. Of course, check with your own state licensing boards, but we get doctors all the time asking us like, oh, okay, well, I'm in Florida and we have to, if we collect over $500, we have to have an escrow account. How do I build my care plan so that I'm not collecting more than $500 in advanced payment? So we can advise on things like that. Absolutely.
Great. So we got forecasting care. Does that, and then we hit on compliance as well. And there's two other components, like a wellness report card as well as an auto debit system.
Okay, so the next F in these 4 Fs, the next F that loyal patients need, they need feedback that's intuitive. Feedback that's intuitive. So, one of the problems with patients, right, is they start feeling better. And then what? They drop out. They're like, why am I still coming in? I'm feeling better. Why am I coming in 2 times a week? I'm feeling better. So we found when you give feedback that's intuitive, and the intuitive part comes from, we give patients a report card with a letter grade on it, just like they got in school, because it's not like a new system we need to teach them of like, oh, here, here's your posture analysis. Here's the scan that we did, and the red is bad and blah, blah. No, it's just like based upon everything that we measured in your exam, your overall health and wellness grade is a D. D as in dog. And it elicits an emotional response. It changes the conversation from, doc, what do I have to do to get rid of this neck pain, to doc, what do we have to do to get me to an A?
Yeah, how do I get to an A? That's great. So we mentioned this in our pre-show that you've gamified it. And that's like inherent in our psychology and in the way that we're approaching this. So brilliant. That's awesome. All right.
So we have a tool called the wellness score system, and it has over 150 biomarkers. Doctors just pick and choose what it is that they're measuring in their exams, and then they build this report card. It's easy breezy. And I also find that it does a comparison report. So everybody loves to see before and afters, right? Whether it's like a makeover show or house show, or so we give before and afters on. So we're like, oh, you started as a D. Congratulations, you're ready for wellness. You're a B plus. So I have found when I present that to patients, if they haven't referred anybody in at that point, they're like, oh, hot diggity dog, I got results. Here's my report card. And they're just showing this off to their friends. They're Snapchatting it and putting it on social media. So it's a great way to get new patients as well.
And marketing tool. Okay, so we got forecasting care, feedback that's intuitive. What's the next F?
Yep. The next one is creating a frictionless payment experience in your practice. Every time people have to touch their money, like whether it's cash, card, check, if anybody writes check except for grandma, anytime people have to touch their money in the practice, you create an exit door to it because they have a purchase decision to make. after every re-exam, you ask them to buy a new package, or, all of those points. Anytime they have a purchase decision, you create that artificial exit point. So with our auto debit system, we allow you to create a frictionless payment experience. We teach you how to have a new financial policy where all of your patients' billing is on file. So whether they're a one-time per visit patient, they just pay their co-pays. Hey, Brian, today it's going to be $60. I'll charge your card on file and email the receipt to you. Let's get your next appointment scheduled.
Love it.
You're just doing that. And then, of course, if there's a payment plan attached to it, you automate the way the payments are coming in. And I'll tell you what, back in the day, when I was an old school CA, we didn't have an auto debit system, but what we had was like the non-compliant way of doing it now, which was just write credit card numbers down, and then on the 1st and the 15th, you just type it into a terminal. That is totally illegal. You cannot do that anymore, which is why
those watching, please note that. And I'm going to shamelessly plug our outfit here at Genesis, because Cash Practice and Genesis are integrated.
Yes. And we do that to help make practices not only compliant, but more efficient when it comes to the collections.
And ultimately the patient experience.
The patient, what's wonderful is no matter what your role is in the practice, is not talking about money to your patients. Just focusing on connection, patient education, like they need all of those things, because that's like the last thing people want to think about is the money. Not that they're paying as a problem for the service, but they want to focus on the experience in the practice.
Right. And again, you want to avoid any artificial, like you said, any artificial point of exit. And there are so many variables along the life cycle of a patient where these exit points can be created. So it's really good to capture that. So we got forecasting care, feedback that's intuitive, frictionless payment experience. What's my next F?
All right. Number 4 is frequent contact. Your patients are inundated with technology. When they're in your practice, they're on their phones, right? Waiting for the adjusting table to open up. Leave your office, they're on your phones. So you need to be in front of them constantly. You need to be on social media. If you don't have a texting application to remind them of appointments, you need to get that. You're super out of date if you're not doing that. If you're not doing any table talk in your office, doctors, I know you are, but your CAs need to be on board with this as well. You guys all need to be meeting on a regular basis and discussing like the flavor of the week. Hey, let's talk about headaches. This is how you answer patient questions. This is how you get referrals. This is what we're going to be, the topic of conversation is with our patients. But another big part of that is email educate. Like you can put your patient education on autopilot, not all of it, but some of it. And so we have an email platform full of a library of pre-made educational campaigns that you just assign to a patient. And so, for example, if there's a new patient enrolling into a program of corrective care, we assign them the new patient 6-week lesson plan. So once a week for the next 6 weeks, they're being educated on what's happening during that time. And so we're hitting them in all these different areas, but what we provide is the frequent contact via automated email education. So those are our 4 F's. That's what we do here at Cash Practice. We're not an EHR. We partner with amazing EHRs, just like Genesis Chiropractic software, because we're in this together as a team, right? We want to help you guys create a high retention practice. And that doesn't mean a high volume practice. It means a high retention practice.
And it makes it so much more fun to practice in that way if you have a lifestyle or excuse me, a practice full of lifestyle patients. I'm trying to come up with an F word. Not a 4-letter F word, but
what the F are you doing?
Yeah. I'm coming up with fantastic for you. I'll work on that. I'll have to text you back, because I just appreciate how the brevity and the efficiency in which you actually deliver your product. For those of you listening, if you can listen to the way Holly communicates, we've worked together on public speaking workshops and things like that. But I just want to compliment you on your ability to, I know you've worked at this. You're good at what you do. You have a knowledge base and you package it very cleanly. And that makes me want to get more interested in cash practice and tell all of our clients about it, because you're using those, forecasting care, feedback that's intuitive, frictionless payment experience, frequent contact, and fantastic employees and team members. So, Holly, thank you so much for this overview. For those of you who don't know about cash practice, it's cashpractice.com. We're going to put all the clickable information below so you can learn about this and how to implement it, increase retention, increase revenue, and just create a lifestyle practice. Any final words that you have?
Yeah. Any final words? I would love for our audience, if they specifically go to cashpractice.com/Genesis, we will take amazing care of you guys. There's a special offer because you're coming from Genesis. You've watched this, you've listened to this, you want to know more. So go to cashpractice.com/Genesis, and we'll take great care of you and answer all of your questions.
All right. Well, there you have it. We'll put the links below. Thank you always for participating with us. So the more you participate and the better content we can create and provide technology to help you leverage for your dream practice. Thank you, Holly.
Bye-bye.